Good morning. Welcome to our presentations titled, How has the meaning of family ties changed during a pandemic? Transnational families experience during pandemic. My name is Judit Végh, and here I'm presenting the study we conducted with my two colleagues, Lana Nguyen Liu and Andrea Duo. So this research is an explorative research. Basically, we focused on families living transnational families' life and their success in this lifestyle. We also focused on the family as a unit, how they can support each other and how they can be there for others. The basic research question we are talking about in these presentations is how has the meaning of family ties changed during a pandemic? Our research design with our sample was homogeneous and small, and we used snowball sampling technique. We conducted semi-structured interviews with trailing spouses, both male and female. They were living as a transnational family in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, at the beginning of the research. And they had at least one child in international primary education system. We at the end conducted interviews with 7 participants in 3 different time points. These time points were the first one before the pandemic within 2019 November and 2020 February. Those interviews were conducted in person. The second phase was between 2020 March and April, when a movement control order was placed in Malaysia, which meant that there were so many restrictions that they had to follow regulations and they were not allowed to go out only if it's necessary from their home. The third phase, many of the restrictions were uplifted already. The recovery movement control order was in place in Malaysia, and it was between 2020 November and December when we conducted those interviews. And again, such as the second phase, we conducted those interviews online. They were allowed to move out, but at this time, 4 participants from the 7 already relocated to another country, either to their home country as a repatriation or to a new host country. We used qualitative research design and applied longitudinal interpretative phenomenological analysis. So what is important when we are talking about family, especially transnational families and extended families, that they have that importance of maintaining a sense of familyhood. They feel that they belong to a family even without physical co-presence. Then they retain their sense of collectivity and kinship in spite of being multiple nations. Then the exchange of care is one of the central practices, so it's something very important for them. Transnational families routinely live their lives together across distances. So again, it's important to focus on those routines, well-known routines they apply to their life. And they are very good in using new technologies, but they always have to learn new technologies as well in order to maintain that communications or even improve their communications. There were 3 group experiential teams developed within this data analysis, and 9 additional sub-teams. So the main teams, the group experiential teams, are the first, the journey of training spouses friendships, from reaching out to feel like a family. The second, the time resource, how they allocate that time. So from having choice to no choice in that kind of time allocation. And the third is back to the roots, from well-established routines to response the sudden events, so how they can react to that sudden event. Here you can see the top names as well. Throughout the research, the names were changed in order to preserve their anonymity. So let's talk about the first top theme that we mentioned already. So within the routing, as the group experiential themes, the maintaining family connections and back to the family roots are very important. It appeared differently throughout the times. For example, the time 1 time points, which means prior the pandemic, they had very established routines for regular visits both ways. So either the family visited home country or the extended family visited the host country, the family in the host country. And they also mentioned family gathering in the first place. So when they gathered together, all the extended families from different countries, and they met in a third place and spent a vacation, for example, together. In the first time point, for example, there was an example for lazy connection. Lazy online connection was not that important when and how does it take place. Instead, in time 2 points, when this pandemic was in place already, they changed that routine, and from lazy connections, it was changed to scheduled, frequent connections, and they also gave technical support to the extended families or to the grandparents whenever needed. Creating new memories and teaching about the past, it appeared through the times, time 1, time 2, and time 3 as well. In time 2, the forced grandparents-grandchildren connection was in place, so parents felt the need to facilitate that connections between grandparents and grandchildren. And also from individual talks, they changed into family groups, online family groups meetings that meant not only with the grandparents, but many times even the wider extended families with siblings and siblings families, and they met on in an online space all together. The other sub-theme that we mentioned already, that is a rerouting process, the reestablishment. So what's happening when they move back? Here I would like to present a few cases and to show how did it change over the time. So the first one, what's happening if there is an obstacle or created an obstacle by the missing reestablishment. So while I was talking about the community connections, how was it before the pandemic? So time 1, back in Australia, I have my mom, just 5 minutes walk from my house. So we would see her almost every day, or at least have contact with her every day. And my sister is close by as well. So we have a lot more community connections, I think, back home. So she has that emphasis of the home country community connections. But what happens when she really moves back in time 3? She repatriated back to Australia with her family. We didn't see our family for the first, I would say, 3 months that we were back, except for one family member who lives within the 5 kilometers. We could only see her outside. Pandemic has permitted everything in our lives and just made it a little bit more complicated. So she emphasized the fact that without that connection that she was missing in time 1, it became much more difficult for her to re-establish herself. She also mentioned that banned rules to meet in order to meet the family member in time 3. she would come and do some babysitting for the kids. She was allowed to do that. I mean, that was probably bending the rules slightly, but she would occasionally babysit the kids. So she was talking about her mother and how they bended that rule. Another example, which is highlighting the care and the importance of care. And it's not only care from parents to grandparents, but also from grandparents to parents. So in time 3, it's Kira cases, and she moved back to India, but not to her own hometown, but to a different religion in India. And just now, at the moment, my mom is visiting us. So it is even nicer. That's very little that I do. I'm getting pampered. So the importance of care in this re-establishment process is there and is highlighted. The next sub-theme that I would like to present to you is the precious time. What if there is not enough time left with parents? So the first example, the first case is Ben's case, and he explained how his relationship with his own mother changed during that 3 time points. So the first time, the family, it fell apart. It fell apart when that became a conflict. For me to communicate with her is to visit Manila. I don't want to visit Manila because of everybody else. So he refused that connection with her mother. Time 2, immediately after the pandemic. I've been out of contact with my family relatives for a long time, but because of my friend, one of the friends I was talking to, she said, I haven't talked to my mom, so she kind of pushed me to talk to her. About 2 days ago, I called my mom for the first time in 4 years. I think I called my mom. So from not having the connection, after the situation has changed, he was able to reconnect to his mother. And the third time point, I still don't talk to them, so that have not changed. I've been messaging more, so I've been more aware of the preciousness of time. So I've been more engaging with my mom. I would respond faster now on WhatsApp rather than before. I would delay. So that case shows very nicely how the concept of that time and the preciousness time developed and changed. So the conclusion of our study, and especially this part when we highlighted and emphasized the family and family connections, how has the meaning of family ties changed during, after the pandemic? The extended family, we can say that besides the current support, which is always very important for them, it also has a special role of facilitating the reestablishment and the repatriation process. And in case they don't have that, it's becoming much more complicated and much more difficult. A link between past and present, teaching about the past, creating present memories is important, whether if it's the normal time or in crucial times. But in case of crucial times, they have that missing part of being there in the present and learning from the past through being there in present, for example, in the home country. In case of lack of routine visits, there is a reinforced virtual connection between grandparents and grandchildren. So referring back to the continuous connection and the visits and well-known routines, when there is no possibilities to do that, they reinforce that kind of virtual connection. And there is a new concept of connection, which is not granted anymore, and the time is becoming very precious. So that was our presentation for today. Thank you for listening. And in case you have any question, please feel free to reach us out on this email address. Thank you very much.